Wow, so we have people from all over the world. Is good. Steve Bob's great to see you again. Illinois, somebody from Arizona, Erie, Pennsylvania. Wow, I'm honored that you guys would choose to spend your lunch hour with me today. Thank you so much. Hey, Lori from Wisconsin Rapids. That's awesome. Thank you for letting us in today. So today we're going to be talking about the relationship between SEO and content, and how exactly this is going to work for you. So for those of you who are participating live, because this is going to be recorded and shared on YouTube, you do have the ability to ask me questions in real time. So if you want, and if I talk about something that you'd like me to go into a little bit more detail on, please feel free and make copious use of the chat pane to ask me questions, raise a hand. We at BusyWeb want to make this as useful as possible for you. So hopefully everybody can see the screen. The nice gentleman who is struggling to get there to see, and it looks like we have a question already, but it's not showing up. So SK, if you wouldn't mind putting it in the chat pane, I'd be more than happy to answer it for you. So, okay, so just a bit of housekeeping, and we are a full service digital and growth marketing agency based in Minneapolis and St. Paul. And can everybody see the side of our building? If you wouldn't mind just letting me know, I'd appreciate it before I get too far. Sometimes I get too into detail. Yes, Mr. Cuomo, you have a question. If you want to go ahead and put it into the chat pane, that'd be great. I'd be more than happy to answer it for you. So, yep, we are a full service growth marketing agency. We are a Google partner. We are a high impact partner. We have been a Constant Contact award winner for years and years and years. In addition to that, we are a HubSpot agency partner at the level of platinum, and I have been Constant Contact certified for a long time. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about us or need some help with growing your business through better sales and marketing, through web design, through digital marketing, through inbound marketing, please feel free and see me after class. I'd be more than happy to help you out. So let me guess that you're here because this has happened to you. So you spent all of November and December laying out just an amazing marketing plan and tactic for the year. You got your budget. You started working on the marketing plan. Oh man, this is great. And then, sales needs something new. Wait, dang it, that's not in the budget. I'm going to have to figure that out. And now what happened is management comes by and says, hey, we're getting beat. You need to fix it. We're losing search ranking. Well, how on earth are you going to pull that out? You got to figure out how. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, the one thing I do want to say before I get too into this is that SEO is both a science and an art. So what I'm going to give you today is my interpretation of it, but a lot of people do it differently. That doesn't mean that we're right and they're not. It just means that some people are right and some people are not when it comes to this. So we're going to talk about how I see it and how we see the combination of the two. But realistically, there's a great competitive advantage to be had by combining marketing tactics of SEO and content together. So it used to be back in 2008 to about 2013, everybody spent money on SEO, and that was great. And we did all sorts of keyword work and all this kind of thing, and that was fine. And then people found us, and then people bought from us, but that doesn't really work anymore. That's because almost half of marketing budgets are going to be going to content. And why is that? It's going to be creating assets for us that are going to be helpful and useful. These assets are going to be tying into every part of the business, because if we're doing this right, we should be able to examine every part of our business that is a potential solution to the people who are out there looking for us and giving them an opportunity to find us. In 2019, a massive 89% of marketers now felt that content marketing was linked to all other parts of the business. So what are the other parts of business? Well, we're talking about sales, we're talking about marketing, we're talking about service. All of those things working together, all of them have content assets, and all of them can be created in use for SEO and make both strategies more effective. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Here's how I'm going to break this down. I'm going to talk about how SEO works in relation to digital marketing. I'm going to talk about keywords and content and how that's changed over the years. Then I'm going to break down some of the types of content that really increase rankings. And then I'm going to give you 5 things you can do today to optimize your content. We are going to give you a special content asset that's going to be emailed to you as a thank you for participating today. So watch your email later today. Okay, so this is it, right? This is Valhalla. This is the mountain we all want to climb. So I thought we should start here because it's the easiest and yet it's the hardest thing to manage. It's kind of like learning poker. You know what's going on here, but can we really take what we know and be winners with it? So that's why I want to start here. What are we really looking at here? Really what Google is offering is the opportunity to answer a question. What is the question? Boy, I don't know. Yesterday, my 6-year-old son asked Google, what's the biggest city in the world? Turns out it was Beijing, China. So Google is trying to answer a question and be a resource, whatever the question might be it business related, be it personal related. You can put anything you want in that bar and Google's going to give you an answer one way or the other. So fundamentally, as we're talking about search ranking, I want to back up just one step and say, really what we're trying to do with our search ranking is we want to be the available answers to the questions. And what is the question that's being asked? Ultimately, there's somebody out there who has a problem and that you are the person who's going to be able to solve it. So what Google is trying to do is ask, what is the best solution to the problem? Hopefully that's going to be us. So SEO, that's important, right? And what is it again? Well, it starts with your site build. How your site is built is a sort of a restaurant analogy. There's a front of the house, which is what everybody sees. And then there's a back of the house, which is how it works. And we're going to spend a little time in the back of the house first to talk about how it works. So first things first, if you have a website, Google just doesn't naturally come by and read it and then rank you. You actually have to tell search engines to come read your site. And then the next thing they do is when the Google comes and knocks on your door, the first thing they're going to look for is a file called the robots.txt file. And if you've had your website made by anybody, chances are good you probably have one of these, but I'm going to tell you next how to look. And that's really what the robots file is it's a list of what you should do and how you should do it. And everybody in the world has one of these. And you can look at it. I went to apple.com/robots.txt, and you can actually read what they are asking asking search engines to use. And you can see there's a whole lot of things here that say disallow, and that's really just because it's Apple specific. Really what they're saying is come read everything, and then in this instance they're saying don't read any of this. And so that's it. It's a roadmap to tell the robot how to do it. And if you want to know where your robots file is or what it says, you can go to mywebsite.com/robots.txt. And and you can actually read and see what it says. So here's this cute little guy. Oh, isn't he great? He's going to come by, and by and large, on average, the Google robot will come by and read your site about once every 5 days. And it's going to look for changes. And again, it's continually trying to refine that fundamental question that it's asking, which is, what is the best answer to the question? This Google robot, he's asking what is the best answer to every single question. So he's got a lot to do, but about every 5 days, he's going to come by and read your site. So so now we want to get back from the answer to the question. So how exactly are questions asked? Well, most search engines, and by the way, when I say Google, really I'm talking about search engines on the abstract, because Google owns a good 95% of the search engine market. So this is 19th century mathematician John Boole, and he based the idea of Boolean mathematics on the fundamental truth except for 3 characteristics, which is and, or not. So when people are doing search engines, they can either look for one term, which is puppy, or they can look for 2 terms, puppy and kitten. Or what they can do is they can search for puppy or kitten. At that point, you get things, you get puppies and you get kittens. Or if you want to exclude something, you can say, show me puppies, but not kittens. Now, obviously, this is sort of an exaggerated example, but these are the three ways in which people actually, the Google actually tries to evaluate the questions that people are asking. But that's all fine and good, but how are people actually asking the questions? I wanted to show you this video to show you what it's really like. And the guy on the left is going to be Google for us, and he's going to be an actual guy. So let's see how people actually talk to Google.
Hey, let's go. Let's do this. Can you keep it up? What are the newest shapes? What are you going to do with this information? Is Superman circumcised?
Are dentists more afraid of you?
No. In fact, this one killed a lion. Hot hands and feet.
Is this salt or sugar?
Is what? Salt or sugar?
Sistine Chapel, how old Michelangelo?
So you can see there, and that was sort of an exaggerated example, but people talk in chunks, and I apologize for the video being low. But really what I was trying to show was that what people are saying, they're not asking full sentences. They're asking questions based on a certain amount of words. And those are what are known as keywords. And so the question is, we're trying to figure out what are the key, how are we going to be the most fundamental right answer to the question? The next step in that process is, what are the 8 to 10 most important words that people might ask Google the guy in order to find you? And that's going to wildly change depending on a lot of things. Number one, what you do. Number two, where you are. Number three, what your competition is. All of those are going to be important factors when trying to come up with a list of keywords. And so what you do with those keywords, you put them in the back end of your site, not necessarily on the front, but to start with on the back end of your site. Then Google can come by and constantly realize that you have the same answer to the question over and over and over again. And the Google robot likes that because he thinks that's consistent, which is super. Now, the fun part here is keywords are important because it's not only the linchpin between what people are searching for, but it's also a larger answer to the question that you're providing, which is how you can help somebody in your business. Now, you might have seen this, and there's bad examples of SEO all over the internet. And, you know, for example, you can see people who are saying, for the best plumber in Minneapolis, you want to go to the Minneapolis plumber who really understands plumbing in Minneapolis. That's what's called keyword stuffing. And that's just kind of silly. And that doesn't actually work in real time, especially not anymore, which we'll get into in a little bit. But putting a lot of keywords in doesn't actually help. It has to be contextual, which is where content's going to come in. So those keywords are going to be both front of the site and back of the site important. When we're looking at what the answer is, it's important to look what exactly you get from it. So this is a search for Stasia's Bakery, and there are three different things that are, a couple of different things that are important here. First of all, on the top, you can see this is what the search query is. It's for Stasia's Bakery. So that's the thing that we look for. So on the right, there's a business profile that says, oh, great, you're looking for Stasia's Bakery? Great, here's Stasia's Bakery. Is this the right answer to your question? Next, you can see this below. There are two different kind of results in what would be considered the typical search result, which is the first one is an ad, and that's a pay-per-click ad, which we have done a lot of different presentations on. I think we have another one coming up this year, but if you're interested, I definitely encourage you to check that out. Also, the next level is the organic search, and that's really where that great fundamental ask of the answer to the question is. And that's where the start of what Google thinks is the right answer is. The first part, the text ad, that's people paying Google to be on that top level. Okay, so Google and keywords, that's great. That's all we need to do is be successful, right? Well, in a sense, sure. The longer your website is up, the more you have the right keywords that are attracting the right amount of people, the more search engines are going to crawl it, the more consistent you are. and that can lead to bigger and better things. And the more times you're thought of as the right answer, well, that's good and that's great, and that should increase your ranking, and that should turn into money, right? Well, I mean, that's easy enough, right? And so, you know, you get this great search ranking, and then that turns into money. Well, not exactly. Problem is, there's other people. So you are not the only answer to the question. Everybody who competes with you is also trying to be the answer to the right question. That's where the other people come into play, because Google is agnostic. As much as you'd like to be the right answer and the only one that Google focuses on, Google's going to focus on everybody's right answer. So it's not necessarily the one you want given. So you are competing for the best, most relevant answer to the question. That's the key term here, is the most relevant answer. And we're going to get into that through using content. So now, not only are you competing offline to be the right answer to the problem that your customers might have, you're now competing for the actual answer to the question. So you've got fins to the left, you got fins to the right. You are now competing, and this is another avenue in which to compete, is being available and found is really a fundamental part of business on the whole. Now it's not just location, now it's location online as well. Oh, but wait a second. Now it's going to be even more complicated. So you remember that cute little Google robot I showed you before? Oh, wasn't he great? Well, the problem here is that on the average, Google will change their search algorithm about every 2 weeks. It will literally transform into something else. And by doing that, the search engine rankings will change as well. And so your search engine rankings will go up and down and sideways as well. So what's really the only way that you can compete is to make your website and make your keyword list change and evolve with it. That's where hiring people to do SEO comes in. That's where working on SEO for your company and on your website comes into play, because it's constantly changing and constantly evolving. Boy, I'd hate to be that BMW. So how can you tell if all of these things and these base level things are applicable? The best thing I can recommend is go to g.co/search console. And you can use the Google Search Console to do a lot of different things to maintain and check how Google is interacting with your site. It'll tell you that Google can find and crawl your site. If you put on new content, you can request new indexing, but by and large, Google is going to do that anyway. You can actually view Google search traffic directly for your site. And if Google's having an issue with your site, you can start there. This is a great tip, one that I definitely recommend everybody getting into. Just want to take a second here and remind the people who are participating virtually live right now as I'm recording this. If you have a question, feel free and ask it. Okay, so we've talked about what exactly is SEO, but really, what does it do for you? Well, this is a great example that our SEO folks at BusyWeb had cooked up for me just to make it seem really fun. Is if you Google the word, the key phrase, purple monkey dinosaur, you will find us, which is great. Hey, congratulations, we have a #1 ranking. But it's not great, because the only people who ever look at that is somebody who I tell them to, because it's so bizarre. So the search ranking isn't actually as valuable as real, honest to goodness business hard work. So what does SEO do for you? It gets you found in the ways in which you want to be found. Second, something to keep in mind here is that it's really important to be on the first page of Google. You need to grow your ranking to get there, and you'll do that through content, which we'll get to in a little bit. But by and large, 98% of all search engine traffic doesn't pass the second page. 98%. So if you're on the second page, that's great. You're the first people. You're the first grouping of people that nobody looks at. Why is this important? By and large, the value of organic SEO is about 20 times more valuable to a business than pay-per-click marketing. But there's a lot of things that SEO doesn't do for you. So Brian Bush asked the question. So in other words, your keyword could get the #1 organic ranking and 2 weeks later slip because of a new algorithm. And now it's 3 or 4, etc. The answer is yes, Brian. That's exactly what it means. So what SEO doesn't do for you, it doesn't necessarily guarantee people are going to click on your website. It doesn't guarantee a site visit. It doesn't guarantee good fit prospects. It doesn't guarantee conversions. It doesn't guarantee that you're going to get any more sales. People still have to click on your listing. People still need to feel their problem validated, that their problem is real and it's solvable when they go to your website. And they still need to be persuaded that you're a good fit to their problem. Finally, they still need to be given an opportunity to put a hand up to talk to you. And that's, commonly referred to as a conversion. When somebody fills out a form or picks up the phone and calls and says, hey, I have some interest, I found you online, that's where they're looking. So the picture here is serendipitous, because really what the main thing that SEO can do for you is it opens the door to new possibilities. There's still work to be done, and there's still work to be done on the content front on the second side of my slide here, but we're going to get to that next. So let's go back to the Google as a Guy framework, and I'm not going to play the video for you again. If you want to go on YouTube and check it out, it's great. I will say, though, I wouldn't recommend watching it with the sound up at work. Once you get to part 5, it's a little more PG, but before that, it's a little racier. So keywords and content are really going to be working hand in hand together. And that's because people really the way in which they use search engines is they string together phrases that they think are going to work. So 2, 3, or 4 words strung together, they're truly trying to get an answer to the problem. So again, I want to ask you, what are the keywords? You notice how I have key in quotes there. What are the keywords that somebody with a problem would search for in order to find you? That's the start of your keyword list. If you want to go deeper into a keyword list, go with what Google's really fundamentally good at. So Google, the front page of Google, which we've all seen, it was my first slide in the deck here today, that was Google's free business. The other half of their business, where they really make their money, is in selling advertising. So we can actually use that to our advantage. So by looking at their keyword planner through their ads tool, it can give you a list of keywords based on 1 or 2 keywords that people are going to start looking for you on. And yeah, ultimately they're going to try and sell you advertising, but what they will also tell you is the value of traffic and the value and how competitive those words are. So you can really figure out when you're building your site and building out more content, what are going to be the most competitive words that I want to use, and what are going to be the most valuable words to use that I can get. So ads.google.com, if you just search Google Keyword Planner, you can find that as well. So what do keywords get us? Well, keywords lead to ranking. And so ranking leads to visits, and visits potentially leads to sales. So we're still a ways away from actually making money, but we're opening the door wider and wider and wider to a larger and larger audience as we're growing. So you can track them over time, and you can watch them grow if you feed the keywords. So what do I mean by feeding the keywords? Now we're really at where this is going to start getting a little more fun and a little less nerdy. How exactly do we grow? Is by adding more and more of the same keywords. We're doing that through content creation over and over and over again, which is why Ralph is continually finding the same thing over and over and over again, because there's a loophole with Google. You're not limited to just one use of the keywords that matter to you. You can use them in many, many different places in many, many different ways. The challenge, though, is it has to be readable and it has to be usable. You can't just say it over and over and over again, like that Minneapolis plumber example that I gave you a little earlier. So what are the drivers of great rankings? How many times the words are used, in what context the words are used? Those are the 2 primary drivers of getting you great rankings. So how do you feed the search engines? It's by offering people validation to their problem and how you solve it by using the same words that you want to use to be competitive in it many times in many ways as you can. And the way in which you do that is by continually adding new content. Remember the Google robot, he's going to come by every week and he's going to say what's new. So the purpose of content is not only validating your customers' concerns, but also giving Google something new to read. And really the concept here is it can be thought of a lot when you think about the movie term of a MacGuffin. This was a term that Alfred Hitchcock came up with, where he had a one thing in his movie that was important. And if you think about the one thing, everybody's trying to work around that. So if you think about like the Maltese Falcon, you could put in a Big Bird statue there and it would still be approximately the same movie. If you think about the Indiana Jones movies, it's basically the same movie. He's trying to recover one thing. And that one thing is an abstract concept. Sometimes it's the Temple of Doom. Sometimes it's the Last Crusade, but ultimately he's trying to get the one thing. So when you're thinking about content creation, I want you to think of that same abstract way. It's not what you're doing as much that you're doing it in a way that's helpful. So you could be offering a video, you could be offering an infographic, you could be doing blogs, you could be doing a long form article, news, picture. Any of these things are considered content and ways in which you can add more keywords that are relevant keywords to your business onto your site. So what I want you to think about is the concept of exploring the ideas of what your client really needs, your ideal client really needs, from a whole lot of different angles to help answer the fundamental question, which is, can you help? And can somebody help me? What exactly is useful content? Well, this is how Google thinks about it. It's one of three things. Number one, it's either text, images, or videos. I suppose I didn't say that right. Number one, text. Number two, images. Number three, videos. And really what we're trying to do is not jam as many keywords in as humanly possible. What we're trying to do is understand the customer's needs. So we want to publish useful original content, things that are new or things that are relevant, and using those keywords. We want to use IA, which is something I'm going to get into a little later, to stay organized. Use short descriptive names and labels. Again, names and labels as you're putting things on your site are great ways to add another keyword. And then making sure that the content is visible to search engines as well. So three different kinds of useful content: text, images, videos. I'm going to break down some of our favorites, our busy web favorites now. So one of the great ones is video, because remember, Google.com is the biggest search engine in the world. What's the number two? It's YouTube. And so we did a video that was an explainer video about how we philosophically think of our business and the way in which we work with our customers. We call it the collaborative activity of the busy web. You can find it on YouTube, and it's great. And it's got a short description of how we think about our customer relationships and how we want to work with people. So not only is it being ranked on YouTube, it's also being ranked on our website as well. And oh, by the way, on our website, there's a link back and forth to YouTube. So keywords can be found not only on YouTube, but then also on your site. So how to describe them. So I can have the same description of, hey, why you should watch this video, because it's important to talk about how we at BusyWeb like to work with our customers. I can have that on my website. I can also have that on YouTube, and I get credit for both. So videos are fantastic. A lot of the world right now is going into video. So I did a webinar last month on the importance of video and marketing in 2021. If you'd like more information about that, please feel free and see me after class. Infographics are another great way to offer some bite-sized versions that are multimedia, not only words, but actual pictures as well. So this one is one that I found that I thought was sort of a generalized and great. So the words on the graphic have value to our reader, which is our ideal customer. It doesn't have value to the search engine, but that's okay because we're providing great value to our potential customer first. It also gives us another visibility issue because we can describe what the infographic is doing. So put it another way, it's another way that you're solving a particular problem or a particular situation that a potential customer might have. So it is media, it is a picture, which is great. So you can add keywords behind it. You can title it using a couple of keywords as well when you integrate it into your site. That's another great way to pick up some more keyword usage. So blogs are great as well. And I'm not sure how Dave popped up there, so we'll go pretty quickly on this. So when you write a blog, that's really a 300 to 500 word article about something that's important to you. And again, that's looking at something specific at maybe a new angle. So those blogs that you're writing, make them primarily for your users, not necessarily search engines. So you want to make sure they're readable. If you can read it out loud without saying to yourself, man, that sounds kind of funny, you're doing just fine. Don't deceive your users. Don't get halfway through and think, oh my gosh, this is not helpful. Make it actually helpful and useful. So how do we do this? Well, I'd encourage you to think about what makes you unique and what makes your website unique, what makes it valuable, what makes the solution that you offer valuable or engaging, and write about that. And write about it in the different ways, in the different kinds of ways that you can help somebody. You might offer something like insurance, but the ways and situations where people come to you needing help there's going to be a full spectrum of those. And writing blog posts about each of them is going to be absolutely as helpful as possible. Long form assets are a great form of content that are also great as a sales leave behind. So this is one of the ones that we have at BusyWeb. It's a beginner's guide to digital marketing. And if you find it online and you give us your email address that says, yes, I'm interested in digital marketing, then you get this book. This is about a 15-page book that we put together. A long form asset, really what it is it explains why the audience needs your product or service. So in our case, what we try and do is be honest about the difficulties of digital marketing and why having somebody like us can help you. Can you do it on your own? Sure. Is it really, really hard? Absolutely. Now, chances are good you might have a similar scenario where you're thinking to yourself, man, I don't want to give away the store, but on the other hand, what I do is really valuable. That's okay. You can share that in bite-sized ways with people. So what we're really trying to do with a long form asset is create that fictional buyer, that perfect buyer, and figure out what are they going to need at each part of their journey. This is the starting part of their journey where they're saying, hey, I have a problem and I'm trying to figure out what's the best way to solve it. So if you've created a core persona who's struggling with a problem, great. Then you can write to that person. If you haven't created a core persona, then I'd encourage you to go back a couple of webinars, but we can get to that later. Ultimately, what you want to do is provide a real solution. So yes, we use this as a sales tool at BusyWeb, but it's not a sales tool. It can really help you lay out the basics for digital marketing. What the implication is that doing it is very hard and maybe you need some help and maybe we should talk about it. And if you choose not to, that's okay. We're happy to help. We're happy to give you some information. We're happy to be friends and shake hands and seeing each other down the road. So what really we're trying to do with a long form asset is, again, we've got oodles of content that we can put in there because we're really talking specifically to the problem that somebody's going to come to us wanting to solve. News is great, especially if as you have changes in your business, if you're taking on a new line of business, if you're adding people, you're changing people, it gives you a great opportunity to talk about, again, what you're doing to help people, how you're doing it to help people, and what the specific thing you've done in order to help. So a behind the scenes look at your company. So anything that can kind of demonstrate what I like to call championship thought leadership. And I'd like this term to catch on. So if you tell people about it, please do. It hasn't yet, but I'm still trying. When good things happen in your company, if you get an award, if you win some sort of kudos, if an individual gets recognized, that's a great way to write a news post and share it on your website. Because again, if you're sharing that one thing, you're talking about why this is important, and you're talking about why your overall business mission is important. Just by creating this one piece of content, we're doing 3 different things at once. News can double down as a blog, but news can really have its own value as an independent category as well. Another great way to create some content is by creating some case studies or customer testimonials. You're seeing a lot more of these in the last couple of years as well. So why do you want to do something like that? Well, from a content perspective, you're validating the idea that you can solve the problem. You are a solution to the problem. Here's an example of a problem that I solved in the past. It also validates the prospect's concern that they have a problem, and it also gets your best advocates on camera talking about you or writing some stuff down for you. So again, what are we trying to do with our website? What are we trying to do with SEO and content? We are trying to say, hey, your problem is valid and we can potentially solve it. So you're showing people who look like them, who are real people, people who live in their area with problems that they've had that you've solved before. Now, is this an encyclopedic list? By no means is it an encyclopedic list. Is there more that you could do or different styles of things you could do? But I wanted to, yes, but I wanted to give you a basic structure of how to start creating some content and how you can fold in your keywords in order to help up your search game. So why do you want to up your content game? Number one, it shows you're a leader from every single angle. Again, anybody's got a problem, we can solve it. Second, the more content you add, the bigger your website gets. The bigger your website gets with more content in it, the more Google will come by and realize that you are a consistent thought leader and that you are the answer to the question. Third, the more good content you get, the more better prospects you get. Again, we all have been there where we see something where somebody says, hey, you have a problem, click here to solve it. And then they immediately ask you for a form, fill out. Nobody really does that anymore because it's too fast and too quick. But the more you can help your customer realize that their problem is real and that you can potentially solve it, the more likely they are to listen to what your potential solution is. Fourth, you can explain concepts more simply and answer more conversationally. You don't always have to use big words. If you have something that's a particular difficult term that not a lot of people know about, that's a great thing to write a blog about. Explain why it's important, why they should think about it, why you are offering something that's helpful. So again, if we're getting back to the Google as a guy, the more words we have, the more words in context, the higher we're going to rank for search engines and the bigger the door is going to be open. So where do you use content? Really anywhere on your site. So anywhere on your site that you can put content that would be useful to somebody, do it. This is actually my email. And if you get an email from me, there's a lot of things going on. I've got links back to my website. I've got links to my meeting. I've got a video on there. Because ultimately, anytime we're providing content, what we're trying to do is support the buyer's journey along the way. So if somebody's talking to me, because I work in business development, they might not necessarily know who I am right away. So I want to give them the opportunity to do a little due diligence. So here's my website. Here's my contact information. Here's how to spell my name correctly. Here's my title. So you know that I've been here a while and I know what I'm doing. All of these things should help you validate that if you talk to me, I'm going to be useful. How do we really ask that question of where do we put our content? Well, again, to roll back up to a question, where do your right buyers want and need more information? That's the best way to take an evaluative look at your website. Are you giving your customers what they need? If the answer is no, then it's time to roll it back a little. Okay, this is where it's going to get fun and it's going to get a little difficult, but we're going to work on it together. So stick with me. We're coming down to it. So what is the big answer to the question of what is the best content that grows search ranking, which will then help me get more business. Well, it's a little complicated. So first question we want to ask is search intent. So when you're writing content for your website and as well for SEO, it really begins with that clear understanding of why and how people conduct their searches online. So the why is where search intent comes into play, and that's behind why somebody conducts a search. So a couple of different breakdowns for that. Number one is informational intent. That's somebody who's looking for a specific type of information, either basic or complex. So it could be the weather, it could be how to grow vegetables, it could be give me some SEO tips. So they have a specific question, then they want to know more about a certain topic. Navigational intent, those are people who are just trying to get to a certain website. So if you put Facebook into Google, then you're going to try and get Facebook. So by default, you should rank pretty high for your business. Transactional intent are people who are looking to buy a specific thing. So retail or e-commerce comes into play. So they want to buy a specific product. So something like high-waisted jeans or cheap sunglasses. Commercial intent is based on intent for future purchases. So these are people who know they need a larger item in the future. This is where B2B comes into play, and they want to do research online before they make that purchase. So this could be a business service. This could be a washing machine. It's kind of a combination of informational and transactional together. And finally, keyword intent. And that's where a lot of what I've spent a lot of time talking about here today. These are the searches that are going to use specific words that clue you into their intent. So buy, deal, discount, lets you know they want to purchase. How to, best way to, lets you know that they're just looking for information. So this type of intent usually overlaps with some of the other 4 interests. So when you're writing your specific piece of content, think about what type of search would bring people to you. So again, I talked about some of the different kinds of content earlier. Blogs are usually going to be driven by informational intent, whereas a product listing is going to be driven by transactional intent. So if you are working in a business and you sell to businesses in that B2B mindset, it's a mix of commercial and keyword intent. Back to keywords for just a second, and this is one of my favorite gifts in all the world. It's important to do your research and have that Google Search Console, because that's going to give you an idea of what's working and what's not working. And the easiest way to start is by starting broad and then getting specific. So as you're picking up wind speed, you're picking up new followers, figure out if they're doing what you want them to do, which is to click on and take the next step with you. And if they're not, start broad, get more specific. And so you can use some tools to get more specific, but don't get too specific, because if you get too specific, you get down to the purple monkey dinosaur. And so I want to encourage you to think about a traffic versus ranking balance. Yes, ideally, you'd like to be number 1 on everything, but being number 1 doesn't help you unless people are actually looking for that particular answer to the question. So think of the purple monkey dinosaur. Is anybody other than me ever going to look for that? No, they're really not. Okay, so next on our ways in which to help grow our content, our search ranking through content, is title optimization. That's the way in which you title a page or title an article. So there are a couple of things to keep in mind. Number 1, use long tail keywords. Those long tail keywords are 3, 4, 5 words together. Second, don't get too keyword stuffy. So remember that Minneapolis plumber example I gave a little earlier. Don't do that. Keep it under 155 characters. So when you do a search ranking and then there's a little paragraph right underneath, that's the title of the particular page that Google's offering you. So Google cuts it off at about 120 to 155 characters. Include a relevant keyword and then keep it relevant to your ideal buyer. Remember, what we're trying to do is sell stuff on our website, either information, education, helpful, maybe actually selling some real problems. So keeping your ideal buyer in mind is always going to be helpful. Okay, now this is where I think I've said that like 4 or 5 times. But readable SEO content is really crucial here because you want to make sure that you are useful to the reader, not necessarily the machine. So in the old days, all you had to do is repeat the same keyword over and over, but that doesn't work anymore. So Google recognizes that and dings you, and your audience won't stick around if it's hard to read. So write one topic at a time. And if it branches out into other things, make more content. So your primary goal, again, with any piece of content, provide usefulness to your reader. So if you're writing only with the intention of ranking high on search rankings, that's going to come through in the writing and people are going to feel like that's inauthentic. You can use the exact same keyword in the exact same way, but use it in a lot of different contexts in order to help. Finally, make your content scannable. So the best place to do that is by using some subheadings. Break up the content into smaller bits. And a great way to, if you're curious about seeing some of this, is go to our website at busyweb.com and look at some of our content. It's broken up into a couple of smaller subheadings, which, oh, by the way, those subheadings also happen to be keywords. Keep your paragraph short and easy to digest. A lot of times people will look at a paragraph and look with their eyes before they learn with their brain. So if it's long and complicated, people are going to read it with a certain amount of dread. And you can also include links within that content as well. So if you're talking about something else that you've done another piece of content about, feel free and link to it. And then obviously bullets are fantastic as well. So does this mean you have to throw everything out and start completely from scratch? No, absolutely not. You can optimize your existing content for better search rankings as well. So the first thing I'd advocate that you do is repost, reuse old blog posts. So can you write them differently with a better fit keyword in mind? If you've figured out that a couple of your keywords are the most important ones, reevaluate your content and figure out, can you add those keywords here? Second, update and continue the blogs that get you the most attention and the most ranking to your website. One of the weird little things that we've had at BusyWeb is we found that we have 17 funny out of office messages blog that gets us a lot of search ranking for some reason. So we upped that this year, we reposted it and we added 2 more. Third, reread your content, compare it with your business now. Is it still relevant? Is it still helpful? Is it still true? Or is it hurting you because it's an old piece of content that's out there that you don't necessarily use as much anymore? That actually drags your ranking down a little. So if it's not helpful, take it off. If it's helpful, but it needs rewriting, rewrite it and repost it. All right, we've talked about a lot of things and we've talked about them all at a very broad level, and I appreciate you all staying with me, and hopefully this has been helpful to you. So there's obviously a lot of resources out there and a lot of people who are trying to sell SEO as a concept. But again, I hopefully one of the things that you've learned today is that SEO on its own will only open the door. You still have a lot of work to do to grow your clients and get new customer acquisition. So we talked about how SEO works in relation to digital marketing, the bridge between keyword and content. We talked about the types of content that really increase your rankings and the intent behind them. And then the top 5 things you can do today to optimize your content. So thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for participating. If you need more, we are going to send you that content audit form. That's going to come to your email today. Ashley asked the question, are you completely rewriting a previous blog post to not duplicate or using and adding? That's a great question, Ashley. So what I'd recommend is if you need to completely rewrite it, do it. But again, only if it doesn't make sense, if you read it out loud, and only if it's not currently relevant to the business. If it is, add it, change it, and repost it. So content audit, that should get to your email later today. Does the dupe negatively reflect on SEO? Ashley asks. The answer is yes. A lot of times it's not caught, but I wouldn't recommend duplicating efforts. Certainly don't duplicate other people's content without giving them source material, sourcing it appropriately. Okay, next month, I'm going to be back on April 7th. I'm going to talk to you about how the easiest way you can have the delicate conversation to tell your marketing team the leads that you're getting suck and how they can improve. We're going to talk about how you can work with the marketing team to make everything better. That's going to be on Wednesday, the 7th at noon. You can sign up for that at busyweb.com/events. So here I am. Here is my contact information. I'd be happy to hang out a little while longer for questions, but thank you so much for joining us. We will be back next month, and hopefully you found this helpful. Thanks everybody for coming. We'll see you next month.